Yes.
Trustee Cooper?
Yes.
Trustee Wells?
Yes.
Supervisor Root?
Yes. Okay, moving on. We never had the chance to ask in the beginning, so I'll ask now. Anyone interested in giving public comment tonight? Miller? Is there anyone else that wishes to give public comment?
Ken, I have nothing prepared, but I'd just like to reserve my right to speak up if I need to.
Absolutely, Ken, thank you. Okay, any other public comment out there? Okay, very good. Mr. Mueller, you have the floor.
First thing, is my microphone coming through? Okay,
Great, Dennis.
thank you. Again, my name is John Miller with Lake in the Hills, resident of Grafton Township. And I actually have two key things in regards to Alan Zielinski, the Grafton Township assessor. I apologize, this is going to take me a minute. First of all, Mr. Zielinski, as you know, he is campaigning for office for the Republican primary next week. And one of his claims is the fact that his opponent is also running for office, but would only serve the office as part-time. He said that would be bad, and he has stated on stuff that, yeah, among the Henry County townships, Grafton ranks second in equalized assessed value and third in parcel count. It's impossible for her, his opponent, or anyone to adequately serve you on a part-time basis. Mrs. Zielinski, I am pretty sure that this township can be served with a part-time assessor because that is what you have been the past 2 terms. I would like to point out again, you took a county assessor job with Boone County. You were working there full-time and you did not quit this job. And things were still running. And I should point out too, you have a gajillion side businesses. You have fastappraisals.com. You have assessmentbusters.com. You have rentacoo.com. You have a fingerprinting business. I even found out that you do concealed carry training classes. You do all of these side things, and I would like to point out again, you also do appraisals in Grafton Township, like this one, and we discussed that last month. So it is the pure definition of hypocrisy for you to say that you are serving this full-time now when you have not been serving full-time at all. I should also cite again the continual complaints about the lack of return calls from you, possibly by your deputy assessors, but lack of return calls from you or lack of return messages from you. You are rarely in the office. And if you want to prove that you are there full-time, then start a time card system, something that you did not do. So that is one thing I would like to state. The next one is, and this is actually quite amusing. About a week and a half ago, someone pointed me to Mr. Zielinski's campaign website. And while he takes shots at his opponent, he actually spends an entire portion of his webpage directed at me. That's right. He says, John Miller has made it his mission to be defeated. Then he makes this statement, which is pretty funny. He has no training or experience in any form of real or personal property valuation. Since he can't discredit my assessment's accuracy or performance with data, theory, or practice, he's reverted to lies, some big ones. Al, that's really funny, since just about any time I've made public statements in Grafton, I've often carried in public records or other statements that discredit you. For example, last month, we were discussing how you both assessed a house at $487,000, but appraised it at $300,000, but then fought that appraisal when the homeowner turned it in. Now, that's not me making it up. That is public record like this. And when I said that was ethically wrong and not something you should be doing, that wasn't just me saying it. I asked 3 other assessors that. And I asked them, is this wrong? And they all said yes. So for you to say this, and also you had the opportunity. Now I'll admit, I have made some statements online, and you bring them up here. You have had multiple opportunities to say it to my face, because I'll say one thing. I'll admit, Mr. Zielinski, I have not been kind to you. But at the same time, I will stand in front of you and in public meeting and declare them with a microphone on. You don't even have your camera on right now. And instead, you do this, which doesn't have any possible ability to respond. I mean, why didn't you bring these points up last month again, when I was speaking, you had the opportunity to. So now, I would like to report, unless you would like to retract some of these statements. That's what I thought. First, I did make the claim online on a Facebook post that Mrs. Zielinski lies constantly. And given what we went through with Boone County, or how he lied about Entree Computer taking him out for golf, there are multiple examples of this. But the key one is how he claims that he has the best Illinois Department of Revenue numbers in the county. In terms of sales ratio, those types of things. And he did cite some letters from the Illinois Department of Revenue. Like, for example, in 2018, he claimed he had a sales ratio of 31.4%. The target is 33.3. Now, that's pretty good. But, Al, when were you going to tell the class that those are equalized numbers by the county? Because here's the fun part. I have the raw Illinois Department of Revenue numbers. And again, these are public records that counter your statements. And so, for example, in 2015, your sales ratio was not 34.4, it was 29.06, or 2018, it was 29.29. Now, the thing is, what the county assessor does every year is look at all of the townships and look at all of their sales ratios. And their key goal is to equalize everyone, to try to get everyone the same, especially since a lot of townships share tax levies. Like, for example, I share tax levies with people in Algonquin Township. And there was even an example of this in the 2018 report about how Al, he had a ratio of about 29%. It was equalized up to 31.08, and the 3-year average was about 32.15. And again, because it was equalized by the county. And the thing is, all of the townships are like that. They are all equalized up to 31 or 32%. Mrs. Zielinski, this is just hyperbole. There's no numbers here that say you're some kind of assessment unicorn. And I should point out again, you do improper stuff such as sales chasing, which I will bring up again momentarily. But other things is, this is a sales ratio report from your own office that showed you were uneven in assessing the neighborhoods you created. And also, in your brief stint at Boone County, now again, you don't have the county assessor safety net. You're on your own. You screwed the numbers up so bad, the state of Illinois had to come in and apply an equalizer. They should not have to do that. They hadn't done that in 20 years. But while you were there, in just that brief period of time, they had to do that. So I will say again, you're misleading and causing hyperbole. That is all it is. Then the next item is with suspicious assessments. And again, I brought this up last year, how you dropped the assessment of Lakewood Village President Phil Stefan's house 46% in value. And you're trying to write that off, and you say, no one has ever gotten a deal. Al, I would like to point out, this was one of the biggest drops in all of 20,000 parcel Grafton Township. You also said here that you separated out Mr. Stefan's neighborhood. That was created based on market data evidence indicating it was statistically different from the original neighborhood it was on, which was Turnberry. Al, your own information didn't show that. These are your neighborhood reports. In 2015, you had Phil Stefan's house and his group of homes combined with Turnberry. The average sale price was around $422,000, and you had Phil Stefan's home rated at about $380,000. Then I should point out in 2018, it had been equalized up to $450,000. Mr. Stefan appealed, but your office fought it and won, saying that should be $450,000. Now let's fast forward to 2019. You break Turnberry up into a bunch of parts, and you do Turnberry South. Turnberry South had an average sale price that was actually higher than in 2015 at $458,000. You had a confidence interval of $426,000 to $490,000, and the lowest sale price was $310,000. I asked another assessor, should a house have been assessed at $240,000? They're like, no. Another thing too is that you should have caught that, but you didn't say a thing about that error for close to a year. So forgive me if I look at the tea leaves of that and say, I smell a rat? And the funniest thing too is, and this is a recent development, once the McHenry County assessor found out about Mr. Stefan's absurdly low assessment, they actually made a correction to the assessment. Now, after Mr. Zielinski declared an error, it was assessed at $300,000 for 2020. The county assessor decided to raise it to $435,000. Now, Mr. Stefan, who I'm guessing was upset, actually appealed that, which is very much his right. He said, no, it should go back down to $300,000. Now, I should point out, Mr. Zielinski fought. He strongly disagreed with the county raising Mr. Stefan's assessment. He said, no, this is what my formula says. It should stay at 300. But for this appeal, he of course needs to pen an assessor's response. So guess what he does? He says, no change, it should stay at $435,000. And what's even funnier is that he submitted a list of comparables. Now, before he had stated Turnberry South and Turnberry, two statistically different neighborhoods. Well, if that's the case, why is he turning in comparables for both Turnberry and Turnberry South? So even Mr. Zielinski's own evidence says there is no marketed difference between Turnberry and Turnberry South. So again, that's why I say, I smell a rat, I smell a deal. Mr. Zielinski, I did have one more question. What is your relationship with Michael Smoron? The reason I ask is, Michael Smoron is a Lakewood Village attorney, and I'm guessing he speaks with Phil Stefan quite frequently because Lakewood has been in a lot of trouble lately. Mr. Smoron's name popped up on Mr. Zielinski's petition for office, but also there was an email exchange between Mr. Smoron and Mr. Zielinski, where Mr. Smoron asked about his assessment, and instead of the usual response Mr. Zielinski has, which is, if you don't like it, talk to the county, I've turned my books in, he gave a nice, detailed, 2-page email saying, this is how we did it, if you appeal, this is how we will fight it. I hope this helps, and thank you again for your past guidance. So again, you have two different guys and one common piece there. Mr. Zielinski, that's just another thing that makes you go, So I will say again, this is a suspicious assessment and a justifiably suspicious assessment, especially since your answers keep changing. And there's also another thing. I make the claim, and it's a verifiable claim, poor treatment of deputy assessors. They filed 4 different Illinois Department of Labor complaints. Now you try to refute it by saying these Illinois Department of Labor complaints were filed by 2 deputy assessors, and they were filed against the township for unauthorized reductions. Sir, that is a lie. This is a copy of the complaint. It is addressed to you. It is addressed to your office, not the township. And I have sat in meetings just like these, where this township board and the past township board have tried to work with you on a budget, and you have not been cooperative in return. So for you to throw them under the bus there, I'll be honest, I side more with the township board than I side with you. There's another thing. You say, okay, you have the endorsement of the 2 deputies under you, the ones you can fire. That's great. Here's the fun part. Why don't you have endorsements of ex-deputies? There is a reason. I have spoken with some of your ex-deputies, and they would not be inclined to give you a recommendation. In fact, the overall picture they painted from working with you is someone who is vindictive, someone who is spiteful, and someone who is entitled, which is not shocking because this is how you treat the rest of us. And I should point out, too, I noticed in an article the other day, you have trouble landing new assessors. I wonder what the problem is. So I will double down and say, sir, you treat people poorly. I mean, for example, in Boone County, if we were to call up Boone County, what would they say about you? Is it true that the assessor's office there wanted to unionize against you? So the next point, he wastes taxpayer dollars. You say you don't. I will say again, sir, you thought you could expense an overnight trip to Rockford. That is entitlement, and that's a waste of money. And there are multiple other times where you have wasted taxpayer dollars, like a FOIA lawsuit, or just FOIA items in general. The township attorney here has had to rack up extra bills because of your actions alone. I will say again, you waste taxpayer dollars. Then there is the final item. And this is the biggest one. And this is black and white, where you are wrong, sir. Assessment idiocy. I did state, Zielinski makes bizarre and inconsistent assessment decisions. And you came back and said, with no education or experience in assessments, what's his basis for his lie? Here's my basis, Al. Any of your information, when it makes no sense, I actually take it to other qualified assessors. And a lot of times when they come back, they say, Mr. Zielinski is wrong and he is dumb. This is true. The bottom line is, the biggest problem you have is sales chasing. We have debated it before, but this is black and white, that what you are doing is wrong, and that is something I have confirmed with other assessors and other people. I would like to point out again, sales chasing, Mr. Zielinski thinks he can do it. This is what he said in a Huntley publication. Our office is somewhat unique in its use of the market approach to value. That uses the recent sale prices of properties to establish their fair cash value for assessment purposes. The market informs us of the value of a property as established by an arm's length sale transaction, he said. Now here's the problem, Al. The International Association of Assessing Officers says that exact action is sales chasing. This is from the Standard on Property Tax Policy. And I've read this all to you before, to your face. Local assessing officials should avoid the practice of sales chasing. Sales chasing is the practice of using the sale of a property to trigger a reappraisal of that property at or near the selling price. Exactly what Al just said to the paper. This causes invalid appraisal level results unless similar unsold parcels are reappraised by a method that produces the same percentage of market value. No, that didn't happen here. Further, unless similar unsold parcels are reappraised at the same level as sold parcels. Sales chasing causes inequitable treatment of taxpayers by shifting the tax burden to taxpayers who have recently purchased property. And it is black and white that higher tax burdens were shifted to people that recently purchased property. Let's go through the greatest hits, because I've brought these up before. 2 ranch homes right across from you guys in the Grafton Township office. Mr. Zielinski, despite these 2 homes being similar in size and age, assessed them $93,000 apart. Why? One recently sold at a significantly higher level than what the assessment equation was. If this homeowner didn't successfully appeal this down, she would have had to pay $2,700 more than her neighbor. That is not right. That is wrong. That is stupid. That's not just me saying it. That's the assessment profession saying it. Next one, Talamore. 3 homes, the exact same model. 2 of them assessed lower. One assessed nearly 20% higher and having to pay nearly $2,000 more in tax bills. Why? This one sold recently and he adjusted it up to the sale price. Again, these are 3 of almost the exact same homes, but one had to pay higher, and its only punishment was that they had purchased recently. Then the most ridiculous one out of Talamore. 3 homes. These all sold at similar prices, around $340,000 to $350,000. Similar models. One sold in 2017, one sold in 2018, one sold in 2019. Mrs. Zielinski sales chased the home in 2018. That was an assessment of almost $30,000 more, so they had to pay a higher tax bill. That's ridiculous. The guy's being punished just because he purchased his home in 2018. That is not how sales assessments work. Then there's the example of Del Webb. This, quite frankly, angered me, sir, because look, here is an example where, again, a gentleman with sales taste, he has to pay $1,000 more than the people underneath him. Now, thankfully, one of the things I did, I tried to get out onto social media as much as I could and say, if you have purchased a home recently, you are going to need to appeal. You will likely successfully appeal based on equity. And that's what happened with a lot of the people that I was able to get in touch with. Al, if sales chasing like this is so proper, why is it so easy for them to win board of review hearings? I mean, you need to understand You are doing mass appraisals for tax purposes, and everyone needs to be even. And you can talk all about your licenses, your degrees, but this is like a licensed pilot that still thinks the earth is flat. It's ridiculous. Then the creme de la creme, and this is the one where I figured out how this is wrong. This home just up the lake from you, it's now nearly $500,000, $498,000, and this is assessed $57,000 more than your property. And that's despite the fact that your property is 30% larger on a plot more than twice its size. And why? This home was sales chased. How is that equitable? And again, this is just one part. I will point out again, you do not assess, your own data says, you do not assess your community, you do not assess your neighborhoods consistently. And also, when you create these neighborhoods, again, some of them make no sense. This is a report you did for just a strip of red-tailed homes. You did a regression equation, a mass regression equation based on 2 sales. I only have a thumbnail knowledge of statistics, dude. I know that is not how you do assessments. So, sir, you can talk about how I'm lying all you want. No one is going to believe you. I have stood here with public records decrying you. And the reason I do it, I mean, look, I don't go to meetings and yell at people. I can't remember the last time. I make sure I vote. I do not donate to parties. I do not look for deals. The reason I do this, sir, and criticize you, and quite frankly also make posts on social media, is to inform the public, because you are not doing it right, and you are screwing over people. And that includes veterans. That includes retired police officers. What you did with Del Webb with the sales chasing, that's not unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And I'm at least making it to your face. You don't even have the camera on. All you can do is something like this. So if you have something to say to me, say it now. I'm right here, Huckleberry. Or go ahead, post on something like this. I am done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Al, would you like to chime in at all?
Yeah, just one brief comment emphasizing Mr. Mueller's lack of education, experience, and certification. He can say that his opinion of assessment accuracy and uniformity performance is correct, and he's going to maintain that. For him to be correct, both the Department of Revenue, who sets and administers that performance metric, and I have to be wrong. And I'll just make one simple comment. 35 ILCS 200/4-20, which is the property tax code that says the official assessment jurisdiction must meet the following criteria. Median level of assessment must be no more than 33 1/3, no less than 33 1/3 fair cash value, and the coefficient of dispersion must not be greater than 15. That's right out of the property tax code. That's not me speaking. So before Mr. Mueller continues, he needs to get some education, experience, and certification.
Mr. Zielinski, I will say again, first of all, the county has adjusted your numbers upward. I am citing from data here. I am citing from all of this. It's public record. This is not me just pulling it out of nowhere. I do not have. And to keep saying, I have to be educated. Sir, Rod Blagojevich was a licensed attorney. He was still an idiot. And he deserved to go to jail. So for you to say, I have the certifications, no. I will state again, I have taken your data and taken it to other assessors, and they say you are wrong. When I say blatant examples, such as that ranch house where there's 93 grand in difference, those are black and white examples showing you are wrong. That is evidence. So for you to just say, oh, I have the certifications, that is completely inadequate. I mean, you have had your head stuck up your Zielinski the entire time. And I'll point out too, I will point out again, I have done public, this is all research from public records. And well, also, I would like to point out again, I called for an audit of Mr. Zielinski's books because of the sales chasing. Because it was very obvious from speaking with multiple assessors. And look, Al, the county assessor thinks you're sales chasing. The Board of Review knows you're sales chasing. I confirmed that with them. So are they wrong? Because they're certified too. They are, quite frankly, more qualified than you. But I'll point out again, the International Association of Assessing Officers, they were willing to do an audit of Zielinski's books. They would test for sales chasing, which is what they do in Colorado. And what did Al say? I'll open up my books when you open up yours. What's the matter, Al? I mean, you could have just opened up your books, and you know what? If they said Al Zielinski is proper, that would have been a feather in your cap, and you could have ran for office based on that. But you said no. You were just a chicken shit and ran away. And you can't even turn on your camera now. So don't give me that. You are just a liar and a grifter. Just because you got a certificate doesn't change that. Anything else? That's what I thought.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller. Al, do you have any further response?
No, I won't take any more of the board's time.
You had your chance, dude. Name a time, any place.
Comments or questions from the board?
I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to educate yourself, John. You've been a blessing to all the wrongs that have been done to the people in this township. We appreciate you reaching out there to let them know.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I second that. I realize you put a lot of time in this, that you get paid nothing for it, but you really, truly, I believe, want to help people out. And people have come up to me to say thank you to you. So I appreciate that. I guess the only question I have is for Al. I didn't really know you had your own site or whatever for, your campaign, but you really have to take a whole page to belittle John Mueller on here? If he's so wrong, why do you even care to put it on there?
It's not a board issue.
I didn't say it was a board issue. I was just asking a question.
You very well could make it one. You make the wrong step.
And look, I would just like to say again, I do this or I make these statements, and look, I am not active on social media otherwise or anything. People are getting screwed. There are people that have paid thousands more than what they should have. And what quite frankly angered me is when I realized, look, in Del Webb, if they recently purchased a home, they probably have an assessment that could be 10 to 20% higher than other homes exactly like theirs around them. And that's not how you do it. There is no materials anywhere, sir. You pull up some training materials and show me how it's done like that. They aren't there. That's because I asked. I can't stand it how people are getting screwed. The people that have educated themselves and knew to appeal down, they were able to successfully do it. But again, even like the woman with the ranch home, she had to hire an attorney because she was so nervous that she might not win her board of review, but she gladly did it. And now, if you're so certified, let's go back to Phil Steffen's house. If you're so certified, please explain to me how in 2018 you find the house to be $450,000, and then in 2019 drop it to $240,000, and then with an error bring it up to $300,000. It goes up to $435,000 when the county adjusts it up, and then you don't contest that. So it's going like this. You're a certified professional that does that? Sure. Look, I'm not a professional coach, a professional football coach. I know the Chicago Bears need a new quarterback. That's not rocket science. Just like we need a new assessor.
Okay, John, thank you very much. Al, I assume your answer is no, but I'll have to ask that courtesy. Do you want your further response?
No further response.
Thank you, Mr.
Eric, can I first I've heard about the Lakewood Village Attorney. John, can you describe that email exchange?
Sure, hold on a second.
The last sentence was pretty evident.
Yeah. Well, I had done a FOIA just of emails back in 2019 just to see if anybody that had been sales chased contacted to Mr. Zelensky because I was curious what Mr. Zelensky would say. And then later I went back through them and noticed that, Michael Smoron, and that name rang a bell because, again, he is the Lakewood Village Attorney, and he is billing a lot of hours to Lakewood. So Mr. Smoron did inquire to Mr. Zelensky about his assessment in 2019, and Al, like, dear Mr. Smoron, thank you for your interest in better us understanding, and he says, in gratitude for your past investment of time in our office, below are some data that might be helpful in determining your time appealing would generate a worthwhile ROI. Here are the specific, look, it takes me forever to get data sometimes. He's like, here are the specific spreadsheet cells for your parcel, showing the itemized adjustments to the regression models used for all parcels in neighborhood 180014. That model is explained in detail. As shown above, the model generated only a minor value increase based on neighborhood sales. The second judgment was on your negative parking garage. Your final assessment is within 90% confidence. Finally, the AV and AW cells show there are 2 statistical checks. Then he says, I'm certainly not suggesting you not appeal, just that the data would provide a rebuttal, would show, he's telling them how he would try to rebut it if this man appealed it. And then at the end he says, hope this helps, and thank you again for your past guidance.
Alan, is that a typical response to a typical Grafton Township homeowner?
Of course it is, especially since that property hadn't sold since 1992, when it was vacant land.
So if you own your house a long time, you get your estate. You don't? Why don't you extend that to Mr. Miller whenever he asks?
Because Mueller makes a FOIA claim and I respond to the FOIA claim.
Were you denied data?
You understand that doesn't right or sound right.
That assessments are not a board issue. It's not one of the 4 powers that the board is granted by the property tax code.
So you're just going to hide behind that instead of being open and honest and transparent with the board and with the public. Thank you very much.
No, I'm going to obey the property tax code as I always have.
You're hiding again.
All right.
Thank you for going through that, John.
All right, thank you, John. Mr. Azzarello, it's your turn if you'd like to take the floor.
Yeah, I agree with everything John said. I really have nothing for Al. I would just say vote for Tara. She will be fairer.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, does the board have any other additional comments or responses to the public comment? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll move on. Discussion and possible action regarding the 2021